Vice Chair Loyal,
Here.
Member Avery, Member Baker, Member Beatty,
Here.
Member Boomer Schlager, Member Boren, Member Clark,
Here.
Member Clayton, Member Coleman,
Here.
Member Depler,
Here.
Member Helfrey, Member Homan,
Present.
Member Rubus,
Here.
Member Jackson, Member Cohn, Member McCutcheon,
Here.
Member Metz, Member Pick, Member Rambo, Member Wren,
Here.
Member Shaken,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
Deborah, would you please lead us?
Okay, help me out if I mix up my lines.
We got it. Don't stand for the pledge of allegiance, please.
Sorry. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States,
And
to the republic, one
one
nation, under God, indivisible. For all. Thank you.
Just barely. Spreadsheet. Got it, Ram.
Moving on to the approval of the minutes from the meeting of Tuesday, August 19th. Motion to accept our address. Vicky?
No.
Yes, ma'am.
Move to accept.
Second?
Second that.
Michael seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? It's minutes passed. Abstain. Got it. And Mr. Brunet's review of the second review of our planning element and a little bit of a recap. Know where it came from.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair and members of the group, first of all, I'd like to thank you for attending tonight. As Chair mentioned, we had to forego our meeting of that meeting due to the lack of quorum, so your participation is very much appreciated tonight. You have some people that are waiting for us to get to the land use component. So every time we meet, we get a little step closer and that makes them happy. And so we're glad they're here. So thank you. Ms. Clark was kind enough to do some baking tonight. Ms. Ripito was kind enough to visit one of our grocery stores in town. And obviously we have snacks and drinks for you. So please help yourself now during the meeting and after before you go home. I do want to welcome Mr. Homan. He formerly was with Electro Savings.
Yes, before they merged with Community America, yeah.
So, and president of the,
No, I was a director emeritus at the end.
so we welcome you and thanks for participating. I'll give a brief recap for the benefit of him. So Mr. Beatty for the first time tonight due to some scheduling conflicts. So as you know, we've completed for all intents and purposes the environmental element. And each element has three components: the goals, objectives, and policies. And we've been very thorough going through each of those, discussing them when necessary, and ultimately making decisions on each of them, whether they stay as is, stay but are revised, or ultimately eliminated. Part of that too, we also then talk about anything new. And that's been the most interesting part, I think, to the Department of Planning staff that we've talked about accessibility, affordability of housing, things along those lines. But we've generated a lot of good ideas and thoughts. And ultimately, as we find those, the document to a finished product, hopefully those things that you thought were important, ultimately were agreed upon by the group, will be retained as it goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council. tonight, we are still on the planning element. And this would be the final step in the planning element. We've done the goals, we've done the objectives. And the sheet that was provided to you, the summary sheet, all of the goals and objectives that have been completed are kind of highlighted. Policies are the ones that remain. Tour will start tonight. Following a typical procedure, if there's an objection, we will give a summary of each of the policies. If there are questions, please ask them. We have in the past, let me go through them, each of them, and then we come back. But again, if there's something I say wrong or something that you want to say before you forget it or I forget it or whatever the situation might be, please do. Also, as part of the packet, we have the two narratives. So each element has an introduction. The introductions, for the most part, were 1995, adopted in 1996. The primary author was Jonathan Barnett, nationally known planner that helped us with the first master plan. Clark has helped me with some changes to that. You'll see all of that eventually. I, along with Travis, Robin, and Melanie, have kind of prioritized that we need to get through the goals, objectives, and policies, because those are kind of the meat and potatoes of the dinner. So the narratives will come back to, so please don't feel like they're being ignored. We've updated them with some of the items we think are important. I have gotten some feedback from Ms. Clark, so eventually that'll all come to you. But until we get through the elements and those goals, objectives, and policies, I hope you'll be patient in that regard. So tonight, as I mentioned, we have the policies for the planning element, and we'll start there. Also in the packet, there is the community services element. So if we're successful in moving forward tonight and still have time available, we'll start. So the first item under policies is consolidate future commercial development within the boundaries of the city's town center. That has been a key element of town center plan since day one. We do have a few outliers of commercial development beyond the boundaries of the town center. For example, Clayton and Strecker Road, that's Alhurst Creek Road and Route 109. If you don't know, the Glencoe Post Office, Manchester Road by Route 100 is a commercially zoned property. All of those were done by St. Louis County. Although the commercial development has occurred since 1995. It's been in our town center for all intents and purposes. The department's recommendation is to retain it as is. It's a key element in creating core or community center, our town center. The next policy relates to what we call as a suburban residential area. So in some of the preliminary comments when we started the process, we talked about our land use plan. And that is part of the master plan. There are four primary categories. There's the non-urban residential area. Don't confuse that with the non-urban resident district zoning. The non-urban residence area is a land use category. There is the suburban residential land use category, town center, and then we have a small area of industrial up in the Chesterfield Valley portion of Walpole. The suburban, for the most part, was designated in the northeast and southeast quadrants of the city. So the focus or the nexus is Route 100, Route 109. So in the northeast direction and the southeast direction, where St. Louis County did the majority of the rezonings, subdivisions like Evergreen, West Glen Farms, Winding Trails, harbors at Lake Chesterfield, Copper Lakes, all of those are designated suburban. There were greenfield properties where the city incorporated, and those that were surrounded by, let's say, additional higher density residential subdivision, part of the suburban. The founders did one thing very quickly. They recognized that probably 4 or 5 units per acre on clay and chert with steep slopes and heavy woodlands shouldn't be the process, shouldn't be the policy or the practice we follow as the city of Wildwood. So our initial suburban residential area allowed 2 units or 2 lots per acre. In 2006, that was changed to 1 unit per acre because what we were seeing is even at that reduced density, we were still struggling with some of the issues of erosion, siltation in the nearby creeks, too much removal of woodlands, etc. So we've reduced it down to address the environment, but we kept it at 1 unit per acre because it is in an area where there are some instances 4 units per acre. So it seemed like a reasonable compromise. Tonight, the department is recommending it be retained. I think a key element in this is just the simple fact. I think there's only a handful of, let's say, developable properties that remain in all of the suburban areas. Because there wasn't many to start, and those that have become Windcrest, Windcrest Addition, Woodcliff Heights, Wycliffe, a lot of areas around the Strecker and Clayton Road. So we reduced the density, we reduced it again. Now the opportunities for application are somewhat limited. The next item is probably the core component of what started the incorporation effort. It continues to reverberate in many of the discussions we have when land use is a topic at our city council meetings, planning and zoning commission meetings, etc. And that is to continue the non-urban resident district zoning as the primary category of land use in the city of Wildwood. If you look at the zoning districts map over here on the all of the yellow area is non-urban resident district zoning. And as you can see, it's a substantial area of our city. And for all intents and purposes, except for around Horse Creek Road, where we have West Hampton Woods, Oak Ridge Trails, Garden Valley Farms, all county zonings. We did that because the system of roads is rural. There's limited utilities, generally just electric, and back then telephone. And topography is more challenging. And from the perspective of the incorporators, it's also the area that's heavily wooded, or woodland areas, or greenbelt, as Mr. Ray and I were talking before the meeting. So the non-urban is what differentiates Wildwood from almost anywhere else in the St. Louis region. Because in many instances, you can drive 5 minutes west of City Hall and feel like you're in the country. And people particularly like that component of Wildwood, really protective of it, as we should as a group. So the department in this instance is recommending that we do nothing to change the solid footing we have with the non-urban resident district as a zoning category, the non-urban residential area as a land use category. They work very well. And I think when you drive west of Route 109 or south down towards St. Paul Road and Ridge Road, or wherever the situation might be, it really is a special place due to the rural character and the preservation of the woodlands, the slopes, the character of the land. Retain. Next one is incorporate the land use categories of our town center plan, which we call the regulating plan, into the city zoning code. And we've done that. And it was more of a pressing issue 10 years ago, because 10 years ago, we were talking about wanting to kind of redress how we define land use in town center. So I'll be very brief. For a long time, we wanted retail. Everybody wanted retail, generate sales tax, bring vibrancy to a community, and it became Amazon. And for the most part, brick and mortar stores started to kind of suffer. And now when you go to retail, they're mostly services. They're places to eat, fitness centers, nail salon, auto shops, hair salons, et cetera. So from the perspective of the city, we knew that with our characteristics, not being on an interstate, not necessarily having a full 5 mile radius of homes around a potential candidate for retail development, we decided that we still want commercial. It is a generator of taxes and sales tax. But we also use the airspace above the retail or the commercial. So from that perspective, we started integrating into our commercial districts as well as some of our residential districts, mixed use. And all of this basically is saying that in certain instances, we can have on the same block and in the same building, like the apartments, commercial on the first floor, residential in the airspace above, and whatever number of floors is appropriate. In this case, on number 4 policy, we are putting retained. It's a good policy. It hasn't been abused. I can assure you. Where we've used it principally has been in our downtown district, again, trying to add vibrancy here in the core center of town. Number 5, at the bottom of the list, this is something that's kind of evolved over the last probably 5 years. Ms. Keefe isn't here tonight. I'm ready to go on vacation for a week, and we wish her the best of times, but we've really evolved our historic preservation. Ms. Coleman used to be on that group, as I recall.
The historical.
Yeah.
I was on that.
But we do a lot now in terms of just grant applications. We've been awarded a number of grants. And as we've grown, without necessarily direction from our master plan, tonight we are recommending that we retain that commitment to preserving the historic assets, both culturally, physically, but also better integrate that historic preservation component into our different land use processes. Do more to preserve those assets. And then finally, as we've been doing more so than ever in the last couple of years, partner with those agencies, organizations, individuals that can help us achieve our goals in historic preservation. So in terms of number 5, we're recommending that we retain the key policy, but expand it to incorporate those 3 sub-policies, so to speak. So I think it's important to note, if I'm talking too much, just tell me and I'll jump on to the next policy. Recently, we probably lost one of the most important historic assets in all of Wildwood and probably in St. Louis County, and that was the Mary Cliff residence at the Marinus Retreat Center on Route 109. It was a gorgeous, large house that had been built by, I believe, one of the industrialists in the city of St. Louis. They would come out here in the summer and spend the summer out here, get away from the heat of the city. It had been used by the Marinus Retreat Center for many years as a meeting space, chapel, etc. They removed it, and it was a great loss. So
When did that happen?
it was within the last month.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
So we'll,
I should have been going there to check that cell tower more regularly.
are they going to do something with that property or what? That's a lot of acreage, isn't it?
Yes, the retreat center is being retained. It's just they took out this one building. There were issues with American with Disability Act requirements. It was also becoming an area where vandalism and was occurring. I'm not sure from where or how. And the province, which is in Toledo, Ohio, just felt it was more of a drain on the resources than it was a benefit.
It's like 200 years or 250 years old, isn't it?
It was about, yeah, it was over 170 something years old, so, and all intents and purposes, it was in wonderful shape, but so part of what the department is thinking,
Just number 5.
sure,
Do we need to delete anything that exists currently, or are we just making the additions?
conditions, that's the recommendation. Thank you for the clarification. I should have said that, so thank you. So obviously, the next concern that's in line is LaSalle Institute. Because obviously, we've all heard that's for sale. And that is probably, Mary Cliff wasn't in first place. It's because LaSalle Institute is in first place. And so from the perspective of the department, we have a voluntary historic preservation program. And when we updated the historic preservation code in 2014, that was the first question we asked. Do we want to keep it voluntary? And everybody said yes. I guess we never thought we'd be dealing with the loss of these key treasures that have stood the test of time. The case of Mary Cliff, World War I, World War II, the Great Depression, Korea, Vietnam, it saw it all. It's gone. And they're putting it in haul-offs into the demolition landfill, so you may eventually have something from the department as part of this process that maybe puts a little bit more strength in some of our work.
Dicky,
So I know, I'm not trying to go down the rabbit hole, but I'm just curious, what, like for LaSalle, it's, first of all, it's haunted, so it's number one, but what would be the incentive for somebody who's gonna buy that property? How could we incentivize someone to keep that? I mean,
It's a very good question. They are a retreat center, so in the non-urban resident district, which it is designated, with a conditional use permit, they could do the retreat center. And it started as an orphanage, it morphed into a retreat center, has a chapel, place of worship. So as incentives, we use zoning and subdivision. So from the perspective of the department, there could be some type of commercial activity. Not a C-store with gas pumps and a car wash, but convert some of the structure into offices or something like that. We could also offer incentives in terms of residential land use, size of lots and density. And well placed, we preserve the front and the back where you wouldn't necessarily see it. And the view that you get from Route 109 wouldn't be despoiled by development. So there's zoning, and then the subdivision goes along with that.
so there's a cemetery there, so that can't be disturbed, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and then my final question on that is, when you talk about the Baroness decided that it costs too much money to maintain that. Is there a way that we as a city can help them discover grants, or are there even grants or some sort of financial aid available to property owners who have a historic building that is in disrepair or that needs help? How could the city play a part in that?
Well, this particular, the sale of the property, this has been on and off again for a number of years. And over that course of time, we have tried to offer them some options, placing the building on the local registry, which then allows us to promote it being on the national register. But the problem is all of the tax incentives and property tax relief, they're in religious institutions, so they don't pay those taxes. And so they're places of worship, so to speak. And so those things didn't necessarily register because they don't have that same issue. So what we offer is zoning incentives and subdivision incentives to go along with that, if they're substantial. I mean, if it's 200 acres, well, I'll keep it simple. If it's 180 acres, they've got 60 lots. With zoning and subdivision incentives, would it be unreasonable to say you could have 120, double your investment? Could it work? I don't know. We haven't studied it, but so
Okay.
I think
It has to stay voluntary? To stay that way, or can we change it? I mean, make a motion to, would you think that would be a good idea?
I think we need to explore it, and I think this is the place to start that.
I do too.
Well, if you're exploring it and all that, if you say it's 180 acres, that would be like one house to 3 acres? Are we staying with that?
That's the restriction on the property now.
Okay, we don't want high density in it, correct?
Well, maybe, because if high density were to enter the building, the viewscape, the Route 109, the grottos, all the things that make LaSalle Institute special, and we can do it in a way that doesn't basically end up betraying the character or the integrity, then I think it's a reasonable proposal to present to
But that is outside of the high density area,
Very much
right?
so. Yes, yes. They have public water, they have electric, they have internet, they lack sewer, sanitary sewer, which is a big determination of density. So, yes, Ms. Clark, I think time has come, no matter what we've offered to different property owners, they're bound and determined to remove the asset. There's very little we can do. And even in this case, the Mary Cliff resident, we asked for some of the stone that formed the foundation, the base. They put us under duress to get that out of there. It was all just them showing who owned the property and who didn't. And so it's like, I didn't feel very good about them treating the city that way. And, yeah, so.
And so that was never on the historic property list that we have, or,
It was.
but they,
And I will give credit to the province in Ohio. They gave us a little over a year to try to bring them options, and we probably brought them a dozen. And at the end of it all, we thought we had an individual that would be actually willing to pay the price that they originally described for the property itself. And they said, no, we're bound and determined to do what we're gonna do.
So I'd like to move that we go ahead and investigate that, but I need your help to word this because I'm struggling with words right now.
So I think what Ms. Clark is asking that as a potential policy, not knowing how it'll be finally written for your consideration, as a potential policy that the historic preservation and restoration code wanted to do historic assets be voluntary in all instances.
Well, that's so vague.
Well, I want it to be vague right now because I want to basically prepare something for you that's a little bit more thought out.
Okay.
But I guess I want direction from the group to basically explore shifting the burden of preservation from the city to the owner. I think that's a fair request. There are properties by the time we get there aren't worth saving, or they're just not, by age, they're significant, but by design, construction materials, condition, they're not.
I think you need to bring us something back next meeting.
That's what I'd like to
And
do.
then let's have a discussion at that
Right.
point.
I would move that we do that. We go ahead and give the step that.
And I would also like to know what would be the parameters, what is the criteria that the city says? This is when you can no longer be voluntary. This is what we feel like you should be mandatory. What does that look like?
And we have a great start on that. The National Park Service of the Department of Interior with the federal government, we have 13 criteria. Cover everything that it was done by a famous architect to George Washington slept there, that kind of thing. So we have those in our code now. But like I said, it may be all is said and done, it's too onerous, and you all say no. It may be that trying to split the baby, some don't, some do. Maybe that we end up saying, well, yeah, I'd like to explore that with you all.
Would we be behind the curve as far as the LaSalle property? I mean, is
I
it?
think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because nothing's actually happened there yet.
He is under contract.
It
but
is.
There's a lot of steps in the.
And just
process.
not to get specific, but realistically, if someone were interested in that tract, it would make sense for them to at least come to you guys and say, hey, would this work there? You know, before they shell out their own money and then,
You would think.
yeah, that has not
In
happened.
theory, if a builder bought it, they could pretty much put in 50 homes without us being able to say no, right?
For the most part, yeah.
They'd have to come in front of us for sewage because there's. no
Not
sewage.
necessarily.
Well, but
But you all see the preliminary plat.
Yeah, we might not see it till site development plan.
Teresa,
Yeah, well, we've got the list now, but, you know, when I was on historic preservation, I remember walking through houses right alongside Mr. Scott, who was explaining all of these things about these houses that we really didn't have handle on other places, like the one over on St. Albans.
JP Connell.
Yeah, that one, and it was such a beautiful place. I mean, walking through it, you might not see it, but if you look through what was there, or the one out on the West Eden property. You know, those homes had so much to offer and really were at their discretion, right? They just, if they want to take it down.
Right, and in some instances, like the one Clark just mentioned at West Eden subdivision, which is at Mill Road. By the time we got out there, supposedly vandals had already removed the shutters, some of the windows, things like that. So we get there to do our inspection and try to convince them not to demolish it. It's already halfway there. So like I said, I just think we need to kind of step back and say, maybe voluntary was okay, but now we're seeing the inventory of lots that are available for development continue to diminish. So now the properties that have additional costs, like historic assets to be demolished, are getting into the cycle. Maybe we need to reorientate ourselves.
another option it's gonna be very difficult to make it mandatory. But an option to make it mandatory may be a very documented review process, which puts a significant amount of time for you to do the negotiation and talk things through versus trying to let them know in 2 weeks or 2 months.
Mr. Rout was on Historic Preservation Commission, and really the way the code reads, once we schedule the site visit and hold it, which usually is within a 30-day window, we have the 60 days to conclude the process. So it's really basically 3 months. And that's all we have. And
But you
sometimes,
could extend that.
so that's a thought too. I mean,
So I made a motion. Did we have a second to that?
so Ms. Clark made the motion to authorize the department, collectively us, to investigate strengthening how we treat our true historic assets. I didn't hear a second.
I'll second that.
Sure. Ms. Coleman. Any discussion on that?
No. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
And
Motion
just
passed.
one more mention about the house, because it really is so beautiful about Wildwood. That's, that's something we have here that not every, that's so unique. And that building over there on St. Albans, that is, as I understand, one of the last one with that architecture. It's like the Pond School, the structure is, and it's the only other one we have in Wildwood.
Pond School and this house called JP Connell House, they both have generally the same time frame. And they used horsehair stucco. Because Pond School had burned down several times prior. And so they were trying to figure out a way to, you can't keep building it and burning it down, so.
Where is this other one?
It's out across from Tom Kelp's property at St. Albans, a road in Highway 100.
Okay, so right at T 100.
It's actually a major commercial developer, JG Brewery. They own Gravois Bluffs Commercial Center. Harry and Christine, two of the Greweys. have a contract on the property and do want to restore JP Common House. And use the remaining property for a cattle ranch.
For what?
Cattle ranch.
It's beautiful out there.
Cattle ranch,
All right.
nice.
Where was that?
Yeah, those fluffy cattle like they have in South Dakota. Yeah. lots of them.
What was gonna be proposed as a cattle ranch?
The JP Connell House.
Oh, wow. Does Novelli still own that property?
September.
Oh, for that.
St. Albans Properties
Right.
owns it, was Tony Novelli's company.
Right.
But the Grueys have a contract on it. They're doing their due diligence now. They're having an Alta survey prepared. They've met with our historic preservation commission last week.
I think originally when they came to us, they wanted to put 12 homes or something in there.
You know, we had talked about doing that incentive component.
Right.
And retaining the JP Connell House on a lot and then doing additional lots on the remaining, say,
Right.
11 or so.
Oh, okay. So that it's extraneous to their needs now.
Actually, Mr. Gruey has property on Pond Road. He has cattle there. He wants to expand the operation.
Could the retreat center LaSalle become a cattle ranch?
Sure could. Farming's permitted by right in the non-urban resident district.
I can see a bunch of Black Angus.
So, item number 6, policy number 6. Maintaining land use and environmental policies to protect regional park system. So prior to Wildwood, St. Louis County didn't necessarily treat the park boundaries, that being Green Shelter, Lockwood's Reservation, Lockwood's Range, Battler State Park, with any special protections. From 2006 on, there was a feeling amongst the master plan volunteers that we needed to do that. So we apply our policies, and I think more importantly, we bring the park facilities into the process. So they're one of the first ones that are notified. So in this particular case, the department is recommending we retain. Number 7 policy is promote the development of consistent regulations between other service providers, fire, school district, utilities, city land use standards, et cetera. What I will tell you is, I think our service agencies do a great job, fire districts, the school districts, we have good cooperation. All goes out the door with the utilities. They become each and every legislative session in Jefferson City, they become more stronger. And we as a collective city or cities become weaker. Stepler, Ms. Helpfrey, Mr. Rubis, Mr. Beatty, they're all on planning and zoning commission. They can tell you, we bought ground on telecommunication facilities, small cell technologies, home-based businesses. I heard today at the coffee with the mayor that this last legislative session, when public projects used to require utility relocation, the utilities had to pay for it. So it just adds cost to our projects and the cost. So
Utility companies seem to keep notching and getting bigger.
and farther removed from us being able to enforce our code. It's just hard because it's not AT&T that does the work. It's a contractor or a subcontractor to a contractor to a subcontractor.
Okay, so I'm gonna mention this here because I was gonna also mention it Monday in planning and zoning, so be ready. I want us to be ahead of this data center stuff. So I don't know if this is the place to mention it, but if you want, how I would like to word it, I would like it to say, never, ever, ever, ever can there be a data center in the city of Wildwood. That's what I would like for it to say. But so I think that we absolutely need to address this, especially if this document is gonna be 10 years old, because this last time in the news about how many of these there were gonna be within the next 3 years was mind-boggling. And I think that if I remember about 2 weeks ago, I read something about how on the East Coast, they are affecting the people in nothing but a negative way. They're affecting the water, they're affecting the people's utilities. The people are having to pay the utilities for these, you know, their fees to inspect. So I don't see the people that live there benefit in any way from it. So if we're gonna spend all this time doing this, I hope that we address that in this document somehow.
Jim,
Is a data center part of is that considered a telecommunications?
That's a very good question. Because as you know, in all of our districts, for the most part, except industrial, which they are, some instances permitted by right. So that'd be down in the valley. But in our districts in C, we're either permitted by right as a local public utility or with the conditional use as a utility.
But they're not a utility, they are a data center and they are usually owned by a corporation like Facebook owns it or Google owns it or Amazon owns it. And if, so that's not a public utility.
Well, it
And-
doesn't have to be a public
But
utility.
I just think that we need to address it. I don't know enough about it to say, be the defining voice, but I think we need to address it.
Well, Warren Edens, who used to be a city council member for Ward 2, had identified that near the end of her last term as an issue. So I think we'll certainly add it to our list of policies for presentation. But I think actually the Planning and Zoning Commission may have to do something a little quicker than our process.
That was on my list, so.
So in this particular instance, the department just is recommending on policy 7 that we retain, we revise it and have more, let's say, practical statement. And that practical statement may be the state legislature needs to recognize that they're harming cities and residents. Legislature. Sorry. Number 8, there, maintain design criteria and standards for architecture and buildings so it complements the natural and built environments. Obviously, we've had almost 30 years of application of standards and guidelines in the town center. I would discourage us from changing them radically at this stage or recommending a radical change because we have a palette. The palette includes a French colonial hotel and an Art Deco theater, but it all works together. So in this particular case, the department is recommending that we retain and for the most part, make a good statement that we believe as a group that there's flexibility in those and they allow people to do good architecture, good materials, good designs. So. Number 9, this one came in 2016, and it's that any land use related matter needs to be acted upon by the Planning and Zoning Commission before going to any council committee or city council itself. And for the most part, this had to do with some capital projects that were underway by the city and didn't necessarily get the full review. The department is just basically saying retain it. And the last is a new policy. And this kind of came out of our goal and objective relating to affordability. And as you know, we had a lengthy discussion about affordability and how to make housing out here accessible to a larger group of people, different demographics, different ages, different abilities. We ended up having the recognition that trying to do a housing affordability index, trying to manipulate the free market, for the most part is not necessarily something that we can do. So in this particular instance, I had it as adding it. I think actually we may just want to forego it at this stage.
I mean, if we continue to not allow developers to build max density that our plan allows, it's just going to keep driving housing costs up and up and up.
I don't know the solution. Travis spends a little more time on the housing component with some of his outreach that he does for the city. Melanie also, like I said, it's just a tough issue. Everybody, we had a project on Overton Road. It was a 3-acre tract of land. It started out with 26 homes. We got it down to a reasonable number. By the time we got it down to that reasonable number, they came back and said, we'll do 3 1-acre lots in the heart of town center on Etherton Road.
So
I
dumb.
guess that was saluted as a victory, but actually saw it as something like in town center, the one place where we can have density. We ended up without it, so. It's a tough issue.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
so-
the way we made McBride cut back with the lot that the project they pulled out of, the one across the street that's been downscaled so much.
Yeah, McBride Homes has walked away from 2 projects in town center.
But so your question really is this something that we can affect?
And that's why I'm asking.
Well, I think that, I think it's worth looking into. I mean, talking to, Ms. Keefe last meeting, she had some, some thoughts about this and how to go about creating a mechanism. So I think it's worth keeping myself. I like putting it in there because it is something we need, is more diversity in housing to keep our businesses going too. So I would be for keeping this new one that you've come up with.
Vicky,
I make a motion to get rid of it.
I'm sorry,
Make a motion to get rid of it.
I second.
Wait, what are we getting rid of?
Number 10.
Jim,
Is affordable housing, are we talking about both purchase or owner, rental, lease? Are we talking?
From my perspective, Mr. Rubus, I think it's more owner occupied. Because obviously the rent structure, like the new facility, they'll have a studio that's about $1,000+ all the way up to about $3,000 for the 3 bedrooms. So depending on your circumstance, if you can survive in a small studio, it's affordable out here, I think, at $1,000 a month.
I with the cost of land in Wildwood, I don't know how you define affordable.
Mr. Shaken and Mr. Holman may have some thoughts on this, given their backgrounds, economic development in St. Charles County and former financial person.
I
Well,
also have opinions on it.
That was Miss Pick who's
Yeah, it was. Sorry, I just, obviously this being a subject that I'm pretty well versed on, I do think that it's too broad for us to consider. There's just too many aspects that go into it. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, ma'am.
yeah,
Yeah, I think you definitely have to look at, I mean, there aren't that many properties within Wildwood that are probably affordable for a certain level of individual. I mean, that's part of the nature of, when you say you live in Wildwood, people naturally assume that you have some degree of affluence, if you will. So I mean, I don't think that you might consider lower income or definitely coming out here to look for a home or rent. There aren't that many rentals, to my understanding. And there
I'm
aren't that
just
many.
gonna say the home I live in now, if I had to buy it on the market, I don't know that I could afford it.
Exactly.
And that's why I don't want to get rid of it. But I just, as sitting on planning and zoning, every development we see is like $1 million homes almost.
but a financial look at Wildwood and the costs involved to build properties in this location, you're not gonna end up with an affordable place to live unless it's subsidized.
Affordable is relative.
Yeah.
It's a
I mean,
relative
I
term.
get that, but
Exactly, it is relative.
I mean, I don't know that there's anything we can do as a city by itself, but the whole country in all of these urban areas have affordability problems, and it's because we've made it too hard to build homes.
Yes, and because this, you know, this is not going to keep people that we think can't afford to come in and rent. I mean, we can't prevent somebody to come in and use government monies to rent a, you know, and we would invite them in. I hope that we wouldn't say, oh, we don't want that person or don't want that
I
person.
don't think anybody's saying that. I don't think that one person in this room thinks that. And you implied that the last time we brought this up, and I don't think that anybody is saying that we don't want any particular person here. But I am a property owner and I don't want somebody to tell me that I have to reduce what I'm gonna sell my house for to make it affordable for somebody else.
No one's
So when you
doing that.
start putting,
That's not what we're
rules-
saying.
I understand that, but my point is that when you start putting all of this in here, then it has a negative connotation. I don't know how you make housing affordable. Mr.
You
Rudic
build
just
more
told
of
us.
it, supply and demand.
Right, but we can't get anybody to build. I mean, that's just the
Well,
thing.
that's because we,
So how will this
every
make somebody
time
come
we
and
get
build?
these developments coming before planning and zoning, the residents are like, oh, that's too many homes on that lot, and then we cave to the other residents and tell the developers to cut down the number of homes even
So
though
we-
it
wait,
meets spec.
I don't know that we cave to the residents, but we do listen to the people who already own property there and are living there and have invested their life savings there. They should have a say at the table. And I think that that's a fair thing. And when Mr. Winich talked about this map on the wall, he said that we're very limited on what we have suburban development. So the majority of the stuff that we have to develop is non-urban. Is that a correct assessment? I am, from what I deduce from being on planning and zoning and listening, I think that the more, now we're saying we're gonna have a mechanism to measure, and now we're gonna have more hoops for somebody that wants to build to jump through. I don't think they're gonna wanna do that, and I don't think this actually does anything. I don't think there's any teeth in this.
I have a question, Joe. The apartment complex that's going to be built, how many apartments?
188.
And I'm sure when they went through the approval process, you guys talked about what they would rent for.
That question was asked both at Planning and Zoning Commission and City Council.
But isn't that technically an illegal question to
I
ask?
want to know the answer to that question.
Yes. And as I mentioned, they were asked by different people. Typically, the city attorney doesn't like that question.
Right.
Because
Price control.
It does the same thing.
basically
The purpose,
there's that balance.
yeah.
We want it to be
but
high enough
are
to keep
there
those
some-
people out.
The purpose of my question is, that's an example of high density housing in Wildwood. How much is it gonna cost and is it affordable? And if it's not affordable, then there's not much else we can do.
But I think we're defining affordable a little different. I'm talking about like, what Robin was speaking about was determining what, how we can make some things, how we can make some areas affordable, and what would we have to do to get that to that point so that we can keep businesses with employees.
But isn't it market driven? The free market economy is that,
We've
if
got,
I'm the landowner,
Mr. Shaken.
yeah. Louis?
Yeah, just got a quick question, Mr. Bonich. Does the city of Wild have any inclusionary zoning? So you were talking about St. Charles. I'm part of the St. Charles EDC, and some of the municipalities have started to do is require a portion of a new market rate housing development to be set aside as affordable units, and then in exchange for setting aside that area for affordable units, they're giving density bonuses or other incentives to builders to come out and build those affordable homes. Do we have anything like that in Wildwood?
No, sir. We don't.
That's something that municipalities are going to, where they do an inclusionary zoning, where you set aside a certain number of acres and you cater it towards builders that are willing to come in and build the affordable units that we're looking for in the city.
I'd like to ask Mr. Shaken a question.
Jim?
I'd like to ask Louis a question. how does St. Charles define affordable?
Well, we're looking at the median household income. So I have a report that I could definitely send to the group if you'd want to see. So we work with Habitat for Humanity, and then they've done some research and some analysis on medium incomes and medium home prices, the number of people that make a certain amount of money, and those people that are making the below average aren't able to afford a house that's, averaging out that way 325 to 350,000. So they're taking the affordable based on the median income of a select number of people that live in the area. So that's what they're basing it on.
When you say select people in the area, what does that mean? Like, can you
Well,
give us?
just based on those that meet that criteria. So if the median household income in St. Charles is 75,000 and the average price of a home is 325, and then you say, well, they know that someone that makes $75,000 average can't afford a $350,000 house, then they're looking at catering to those based on their income level.
So where would be a place in St. Charles that they're doing that? Like, can you have an example of an area?
They're doing it in O'Fallon, they're doing it in Wentzville.
A river.
Louis, how do they, okay, I don't make enough money and I don't meet, I'm excluded from the.
Correct. I mean, you can't make, above the median household income and then live in an area that's set aside for affordable living. It doesn't work that way.
So where are you working? If I make $75,000, how do I afford a house in that area? What do you do in that area?
They're not, and that's the problem in St. Charles County. There's people just like, they're having the same problem we are, where they don't quite have enough of that yet, and they're starting to go that direction, where they're setting aside some inclusionary zoning set aside specifically for that. So they have the same, this is not a Wildwood problem. This is a problem in the United States that people just can't afford. The cost of living has gone up. They're not making enough money to keep up with the home prices, and they're just being shut out.
But you don't have an answer.
I don't. I can give you, I'd be happy to share our last go around that we had, which shows some of the numbers and data and where they're coming up with this and how they're looking at figuring out who qualifies and who doesn't. I'd be happy to share it. It's not, it's public knowledge. I'll share that report with you guys. I'll share it with Mr. Vunich, and he can pass it along to everybody. Be happy to share that.
Howard,
Do we know the demographics of current homeowners? Because again, if you got an older population, like I live in West Hampton Woods, and there's a number of us that are right up there, aren't going to be around long. And what's that going to create for the market too? You got affordability problems on many of the areas, so.
Well, Mr. Lee, our city administrator, is the one that knows the most recent census results from 2020. We are an older community, and I think 95% of our housing units are owner occupied. So it's a very stable community in that regard as well. Tom, anything to add?
Yeah, I was actually going to pull up one of the most recent reports, but we have seen, and this is just for some additional context, we have seen in 2020 we were at 35,417 residents, but these are unofficial estimates from the Census Bureau. But since that date, we've actually seen our population decrease by about 500 people. So that's what we're typically seeing. We're right at that 34,000 mark at this point, 34,900. But overall, we do have, one of the strongest median household incomes within the entire St. Louis County, and also, quite frankly, Missouri. We have really, really high home values. There's a few cities in Missouri, but we actually have a couple areas within Wildwood that rank amongst the top in Missouri. So we are kind of just it's a good thing. It's a good problem to have, but we are kind of a premier destination. I can pull up that report if we would find it beneficial for the group.
Tom, maybe if we could provide that report to the group, because tonight I think we're just seeing what we want to do in terms of a policy, but unless the group wants to go through it in detail right now.
I think, are we at a point with the presentation that we're ready for a vote on Teresa's motion?
Yeah.
It was,
I made it, and you
Vicky's motion.
seconded it, so no,
Yeah, we got
We're
it.
carving out 10.
right, I said no and you seconded,
Oh,
yes,
10,
No.
just for 10.
yes, just for 10.
right. But then you also had a motion.
No,
to leave it.
I didn't have a motion.
No, she didn't
Just discuss.
I made a comment.
You wanted to leave it in. Okay, so we have a first, we have a second. All in favor? What?
I just had one question. So first of all, my opinion is this doesn't have much guidance to it or teeth to it. As it is, I guess it leads to my question, if we would go this direction, how could it be implemented? Would we, based on some of Lewis's comments, would we carve out a portion of Wildwood and say this is where we would potentially allow this if developers came in? Or would it be ad hoc, like whoever would want to do a development that we would try to facilitate something like this?
Ms. Stepler, from my perspective, if you're going to try something,
There is
Mr.
housing
Jacob has
east of
said,
us.
inclusionary zoning, I would say half of these half better.
Right now, we have the ability to do that, nobody wants to build in there.
Yeah.
I mean, essentially, right now.
I mean, that's kind of how I feel, I guess, is what I was trying to get to. And we have very few areas within town center, I think, that we could do this. The people that have come to try to present to planning and zoning, it's always been, knocked down. So I just don't see how something like this is gonna be.
Mechanical. Deborah?
Yeah, I am just going to add to the comments about affordability. I know a lot of 30s, mid 30s, early 40s residents were residents as they grew up. And frankly, they're a little irritated that they can't come back to Wildwood and raise their families. So I think maybe if the department will, or Mr. Lee would take some time and just see what other options there might be. Maybe we can use some of our historic residences that there really isn't anything, no one's living there, there isn't anybody occupying that property. Maybe that would have been a great place for LaSalle. But I think maybe we have to think out of the box on how we can come up with areas for younger generations just starting out in life, maybe with children or without children. But I think we're going to have to use out of the box solutions.
Although I get what Ms. McCutcheon is saying, but the dirty little secret on the historical properties is that they may be cheap to buy, but they're a maintenance nightmare.
Yeah.
Right.
Somebody owns them.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a reason they get knocked down.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we've had lots of discussions previously about, thinking, like Councilwoman McCutcheon has said, thinking out of the box, like maybe allowing, granny units, which, are
Right.
kind of looked down upon, but other parts of the country use them significantly. So we could think of things like that, but it doesn't quite fit in a policy, I don't think.
Deborah?
Well, this is very mind-boggling for me. I mean, what is affordable? 200,000 and under, 100,000? I mean,
Whatever the median income.
right,
is about
okay, but
three.
every area, Ladue, Ellisville, all of them, they probably all have this problem in St. Louis County, correct? I'm sure. And what is the solution? Like buy a tract of land and have like a trailer park? I don't know. I mean, I went to school with a lot of kids that grew up in trailer parks because that's what they could afford. So, I mean, what is a solution? I mean, you don't want to do something that you can't undo later on and you say, oh my gosh, why did we do this? So I'm very mind boggled with this issue. I'm sorry. I
Heather?
Yes, thank you. I would like to again ask how we quantify what exactly is affordable. And also I'd like to mention and I'm sorry, I don't know who was speaking, but she had mentioned, is it under 200,000? Well, I would like to go on record. My brokerage that I own, we've just recently sold in 2025 5 condos within Wildwood, all under 200,000.
I mean,
Very nice.
Victoria Crossing, those are probably starting to bump up to 2.
It's market driven.
Yeah, we just closed one and it was 182,000. And that's, to my knowledge, the highest one, unless something's closed within the last 30 days.
But those, I mean, I lived in Victoria Crossing for 5 years, like 20 years ago now. And I mean, it was the only place I could afford at the time, but then my unit was 7 years old. Now there's 27 years old or 30 years old. But we need to build, my opinion, we need to build newer stuff like that.
Condos and
You
townhouses.
couldn't build it for
Yeah, you
$200,000.
can't build
For that.
You couldn't build it for $200,000.
Let's go with Lewis and then let's go with Mike.
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, you know, the US Department of Housing and Urban Development defines affordable housing as housing that costs a household no more than 30% of their gross. So it's not necessarily the house price, but it's based on your demographics, median income, and then taking that 30% of their gross income. That's the true definition that HUD defines as affordable housing, 30% of a individual's gross income.
Thank you.
Michael?
I'm a believer in market economy. As us older folks start to try and sell our houses, there's going to be a lot of them on the market, and it's going to drive the price down. So I'm not sure we need to do anything as a city to try and solve this problem. I think this is going to be a thing that's going to happen across our community and other communities as the housing stock starts becoming more available, the price is going to go down.
We just have to live longer.
Keep the prices down. Eat oatmeal.
So the commentary that you have though, it says create the mechanism to understand the affordability or lack of. And so creating the mechanism to understand that, I think that's, and another thing, I thought that we talked about this before, that we might consider the additional home on a property for grandmother or whoever, a rental another property. So wouldn't that be under this? It looks to me like it would be if it's new or redevelopment types as part of the consideration, just anything that would make us more affordable for some people. That's what I'm looking for is the mechanism to understand.
So from day one in town center, we've allowed accessory dwellings as part of any primary dwelling on a lot. So we've always had that option that you could do a garage and a living space over the garage for a family member, relative.
I could do that with my house.
You make it work according to code. And then I think you all be surprised how many accessory dwellings are out in the non-urban district zoned areas. We have a lot of family members, older family members living with their kids in an accessory dwelling. We have provisions. There's a lot of things you have to do to make that work so it doesn't become a rental unit, but there's quite a few.
Good.
Just want to confirm that the motion on the floor is to eliminate item 10.
Right.
And it's first, you want to call the vote? Any more discussion?
Any more discussion? Okay.
Voting in favor is to eliminate.
To eliminate it, understanding that, Joe, you have other, if we eliminate this is something you will continue to work on. Okay, outside of our scope. Motion to remove. All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Let's go.
Opposed.
Let's go account.
Opposed.
We're gonna go account.
Oppose.
And I'm an
You can abstain. You can abstain.
I will abstain. I don't understand the whole issue going here.
Okay, so do we want a roll call vote?
Yes.
Okay.
please.
Should I call? people that aren't here as well? Okay, all right. Chair Boughton,
Approve.
Yes.
Vice Chair Loyal,
Yes.
Member Beatty,
No.
Member Clark,
No.
Member Coleman,
Abstain.
Member Depler,
Yes.
Member Homan,
No.
Member Helfrey,
Yes.
Member Rubus,
Yes.
Member McCutcheon.
Will you restate the motion, please? I don't quite understand what we're voting on.
To remove 10.
Ms.
To
McCutcheon,
remove 10?
to eliminate the policy identified as number 10.
No.
Member Pick,
Yes.
Member Wren,
Yes.
Member Shaken.
Yes.
Okay, so the yeses, we have 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 8 yeses. 4 noes.
Motion passes.
And
Motion
I'm sorry.
No,
I just don't understand all of this.
It's good.
It's difficult because, yeah.
So, Mr. Chair, there are a couple of other items under the policies relating to the planning development. I believe Ms. McCutcheon had identified at an earlier meeting, we promised her to get back to them. One has to deal with development sites and ensuring perimeter plantings are added if trees are removed. The other had to do with sound mitigation efforts in terms of construction practices along arterial roads like Route 100, 809. Ms. McCutcheon, did I capture those correctly?
Yeah, if I can just, if you want to talk a little bit about the sound study that we did. And the reason that it came forward was that the results of the sound study and also citizens' comments regarding the noise level around roundabouts. See, would you talk about that study a little bit, please?
Sure. After the development of the villages at Brightleaf, we started receiving complaints from existing subdivisions like Evergreen, Westland Farms, Sandalwood Creek about the increase in noise coming from Route 100 and in some instances Route 109 for the Canberra development. After we did the improvements to Route 109, which included some roundabouts, those homes in the vicinity of the roundabouts started also express concerns about the increased noise levels. So we engaged a company out of Rockford, Illinois, to do a sound analysis. And it bore out just exactly what we all thought. The closer you are to Route 100 or Route 109 or any of the arterial corridors, the sound levels are substantially greater than when you move 100 feet, 200 feet, or 300 feet out. So in the case of the point at Brightleaf, which is at the intersection of Route 109 and Route 100, northeast corner, we required additional sound mitigation steps in the construction of the homes, upgraded windows, doors, greater insulation, so as when they are built, they don't necessarily suffer from the proximity to the arterial roadway. Ms. McCutcheon at that time, I thought that was something we should require in future projects that are along arterial roadways or have the potential to be a problem. So the sound study bore out what we all believe and what we would do. We've taken a positive step toward that, but we did it not as an overall policy, but through a site-specific ordinance relative to a single zoning. And so I think, Ms. McCutcheon, anything else I missed?
Yeah, I think one more item is that when a new development does come in, especially along 100 or 109, that they leave the existing tree line that faces either one of those highways. Again, that helps with the sound mitigation. And I will have to say, that the point of Brightleaf, after discussions, were very amenable to the request that we made and are going forward with insulated windows and, I'm sorry, soundproofed windows and insulation. And they are also going to leave the tree line that is closest to their development. We did not get any negative feedback for that. They were on board and willing to do that, understood resident comments over and over about sound and the impact, the negative impact it has on the quality of life. Mr. Vunich, do you have anything to add?
So the proposal from Ms. McCutcheon to the group, and I didn't include it in the, as part of the category new policies, would be to add something relating to sound mitigation for new housing along arterial roads, and then improve tree preservation along the perimeter of the property. So that's the proposal before you tonight.
So what is your opinion on how we address that? Because I think those are both valid things. So my question would be, is this the place to address it, or is it a site specific would be better? What is your expertise tell us?
My position is always, if we could have policy that reinforces what we're doing day to day, it's to the betterment, because we can tell people, look at the master plan, look at this policy, this is the expectation. We're not doing it on a case-by-case basis or exposing the city to, well, you're just doing it because it's this developer versus that developer. There's a universality to a defensibility. So from the department's perspective, we get enough complaints about noise. We even had to do a special enforcement program with our county police out on Route 100, Route 109 for loud cars, speeding cars, which make more noise. So
That's what I was gonna ask, is if there's anything we can do about the cars with the huge exhausts and.
Yeah.
And I've got, heck, it's a guy who lives across the street from me, a couple doors down, has a Harley, and I can hear that anywhere in my house anytime he starts that thing up.
there's not much I think we can do about that, but they're just loud by nature. And
I know, yeah.
Well, I think there's some validity to it. So from the department's perspective, if the group will accommodate us preparing 2 policy statements to be reviewed by you at the next meeting, I think that would be a good step forward.
Jim, did you have a question?
Would we say that it only applies to new developments that are going in with so many feet of the arterial roads of 109 and 100?
We can do that, Mr. Lucas, because the sound study actually gave recommendations in terms of the distance that there was a simplistic approach to it. It basically said, if you really want to address it, don't allow development within 200 or 300 feet of the arterial. That's a take, plain and simple. That would have been 3/4 of the side of Brightleaf. So yeah, so if you're within that distance, we can say you have to do increased sound mitigation.
I'll just add to that, maybe add some verbiage to it as well, because where my house is, it's more than 100, 200 feet away from Highway 100, though the topography of that distance funnels all the noise right down to my house. So, maybe some consideration of how the topography will funnel the noise to a certain spot as well.
Voice tracker.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I get the same thing mostly with the construction trucks at my house.
I'm curious, Amy, do you?
There's always
I'm sorry.
Just, you said there was some consideration for the Brightleaf Point. Was there any consideration or similar to for the McKelvey development? Are they taking any sound mitigation things there?
Well, they have the single frontage on Route 109. There's actually an acre outlet that separates the first of the house on the south side of Main Street. And then there's about 100 distance before the house on the north side of the new Main Street. So you're able to implement it in a more practical way. And it was more, say dumb luck and anything. It wasn't certainly good planning on my part because there's the creek there, so they had to cross the creek and pushed everything more into the interior.
But the existing remaining trees now, some of those are still gonna be lost, is that correct?
They should be pretty much done with the trees. Oh, good.
Trees.
Yeah, I guess I would question Deborah if she would consider changing the motion a little bit to add some verbiage to it, like Cindy was saying about the tree line or a berm or a wall or whatever is deemed to be to prevent the noise. I wouldn't say sound. I would say prevent noise.
Yeah, I don't have any objections to that addition. Partly the sound berm and some of the other amenities you just mentioned were also things that came forward from that study as well. So if it's already existing neighborhood that may have been there for 20, 30 years, 15 years, then adding a berm and some plantings is a very good way to mitigate the sound. And that came out of the study as well.
Vicky?
I just have a question about our tree policy. So when you, so I think that, I remember back when they were doing that sound study at Hidden Valley. And the guy came and explained to us about how all the different, the more blades of grass and leaves, the better the sound disbursement. So as far as the tree line goes, I think a tree line would be great. But I guess my question is, if a builder is gonna leave a tree line, does that comply with our tree policy, our tree regulations? I'm all for it. I mean, if you go to Hilton Head, or it's in most places in South Carolina, when you drive down their main arteries, it's all trees. It separates everything from those roads. To keep, I don't know why, it's pretty too, but
And there's no signage either.
right, oh yeah, I've walked driven right past a couple places, but yeah.
Trees.
So our grading code already protects the structure of building setback areas, with the exception of access and utility installations. So obviously you've got to get into the property, so there's got to be an access point.
Right.
Sometimes that requires, due to site distance, lines that they have to clear back from the access point in either direction, so it's a safe ingress egress. So the grading code does a pretty good job there. In the case of the reserve, the forum was adamant that as many of the perimeter trees be preserved along Manchester Road and Route 109. And if they had to be removed to accommodate access or utilities, that the proposed landscaping plan had to be implemented immediately.
Right.
So the grading isn't complete yet. It looks like it's gonna fall into the winter when we probably couldn't get the stock, but I would expect that early spring, you'll see what's going to be the robust plantings and preservation.
But I guess going forward, well, this is probably I'm probably way in the weeds on it, so I'll just be quiet. Never mind, sorry. Go ahead.
David?
Along those lines, though, what steps do we have to make sure that those trees that are put in are gonna survive? Because I remember one of the things Mayor Boland said was that he wanted bigger trees, but the bigger trees you put in, the more susceptible they are to die in, especially with our weather patterns lately, where we go from swamp to drought and back again.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like up there at the roundabout at Wild Horse and 109, we put in all those trees. What are we gonna do to make sure they survive? And don't start looking like that church that was.
State of Missouri, not us, but so the foundation of our protection of plantings is the escrow process that's part of the platting, creation of lots for sale. And so we basically escrow $700 per tree. And we hold that escrow at a minimum 2 years. There's an automatic extension to another 2 years, and then thereafter there's replacement process. So we also, as part of our escrow process, have something called our maintenance agreement, which means when 95% of the lots in the plat are occupied, an 18-month clock starts ticking, and we hold that money for 18 months to see. We also now are requiring irrigation in common areas because we know it's just, the weather's just doesn't follow a predictable pattern as much as we like to think. And so those common areas, they're irrigated. Now, we did that in Main Street crossing. So the medians and the areas around the common ground where we had all the trees planted, they didn't start the irrigation because of cost until mid-July, I'm told. Travis and I were out there, and the trees, obviously, they got stressed. They seem to be okay, but can't necessarily force the homeowners association to basically turn on their irrigation.
We never got our bills switched over to us. And then I don't know if someone sliced it when they redid Manchester, or Missouri American wouldn't tell us what we owed, so we just shut it down and haven't run it in 15 years.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna comment that you do have some kind of a, I don't know, rule, to use native plants, right? Because that, they will have more ability to survive than sticking in something that's not native. And do these people, if they do a burn, would they do native plants? It's so important.
Yes, because as you remember in our environmental element, we basically said native is fur.
That's what I was remembering.
And Travis, Melanie, and I, what we're doing now on all of our plans, we have the landscape legend that shows the trees that are
Yes,
adding, is it native or not?
right,
And if it's not, we take a special look at it and we push them toward more native.
right.
Because that's just
They will be better able to survive. That's good.
learning on our feet as we go.
Well, aren't we all?
Once you've been here a while, you figure it out.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's about 4 years, so yeah, you're like, yeah, now I know it, now I don't know it.
The developer and the city took a lot of heat when they put in Brightleaf with the deforestation over there. Just curious. The deforestation over at the reserve, have we been getting the same kind of reaction, or it seems relatively quiet? And at the two mayor's coffees in the last, that has never been brought up as a topic, so maybe it was the communications portion of it, or what?
Travis has the enviable position of taking most of those calls, so I'm gonna let him respond.
So Rubik, I would say that regarding the reserve, I've gotten a handful of phone calls about the activity there, mainly for people who want to purchase homes to live in the subdivision. I've gotten no phone calls that I can recall that was criticizing the tree removal. I would also say that with Villages at Brightleaf, the communications effort was much stronger than what we did with the reserve. And that's not to criticize the communication component of the staff. But we did a postcard, or at least 2 postcards for Villages at Brightleaf explaining what was coming I think we did 5,000 feet within that area. And we used our social media and our website as well for the Villages at Brightleaf again, and we still got the surprise and the negative comments that we did. And I would argue that 109 may have higher traffic volumes than 100 at times. I don't know, but that's my answer.
Good.
Just to
Yeah,
add-
if I can, I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand. If I can make one more comment, that I think oftentimes when a development has, for no other term, the land has just been stripped. I mean, that was what I thought was not supposed to happen in Wildwood anymore, that was a North County thing. But try as we might, they still took out trees that we had discussed that they should not take out trees. And I don't think people who moved into Brightleaf really understood the impact of the surrounding area, the negative input put around the surrounding area when they moved in. And Ms. Deppler said, when you didn't have the noise in Evergreen and Westland Farms and so forth, when all that land was wooded and vegetation and all that, it definitely had a positive impact with those noise provisions versus what we currently have. And that was one reason we worked so hard on the new point of Brightleaf, so we would not make the same mistakes that were made with the villages of Brightleaf. So I think we have a good example of what not to do, and we have a good example of what is an improvement and what works. Thank you.
Ms. McCutcheon, I'll respectfully disagree because I had code enforcement, including myself, out at the villages of Brightleaf almost every week. There were trees removed. It's town center. It's 2% of our 68 square miles. And since 1995, the intent was to basically put all our commercial eggs and all of our high density eggs here. We can't have high density, affordability, housing life cycle, different types without town center, and it requires trees to be removed. I'm sorry. It's in the plan, it's in our ordinances. This is the time to change it. If you want to go to a 3-acre community, tell us now to remove town center, rezone it non-urban, and we can do it.
Well, Mr. Vonich, I was going by citizens' complaints and actually standing there and watching trees be removed that were marked not to be removed. So it's certainly not a complaint towards the department. We can't have code enforcement out there 24/7. It was just example of the comments that I have definitely received from many residents who live around the area.
Okay,
I would like to make a motion to have you, the city, put forth something for us to read. That's my motion.
That was what you mentioned like 15 minutes ago.
exactly.
It was just, sorry.
I would
Second.
take.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
And again, my offer stands. If you as a group, the master plan want to eliminate town center as a land use category, this is the time to discuss it. Because it's in the planning.
That's why I moved here, so no.
No,
No way.
we're good.
All right.
Move on. Let's go.
Community services, that's the next element. That we have probably about 15 or so minutes to discuss.
Well,
Wait, did we vote on?
yeah.
I may have
That's
missed.
right.
Let's on all the other ones. Yeah, let's back up.
Can we make a suggestion of one more addition?
Sure.
So, and you'll have to tell me if this is where you want it, or you want to wait till community, about the emergency contingency.
Community services.
Community services, you want to wait till then?
Yeah. Okay, so we went through all 10 of these. We've got 9 left, most of which were retained. A couple are gonna be, Joe's gonna add a couple of things and get back to us. I propose a motion that we accept these as is, as we talked about, and do we have a second?
A second.
It's all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thanks, saved my bacon there. So, community services. This is the third element of the 6. Again, we have transportation, open space and recreation, and economic development. As is described in the introduction, there are 5 goals in association with community services element, 6 objectives, 11 policies. Principally, this is where we, as a group, the start of the city, talked about how best to provide services to the community and how to basically protect our residents, so to speak. And so the first goal relates to appropriate police, fire, EMS, sanitation, and other municipal services need to be maintained. So context, this wasn't in the original master plan. It was added 10 years after. And the point being is, in that first 10 years, everybody thought that there was a high potential that Wildwood would fail. And what we proved is the way we were providing services through contracts actually worked. And so the group at that 10-year mark said, keep it up. And so that's what the department is saying, retain. The next item is something that came goal number 2. I'm sorry, I didn't number it. It's the second one. Talked about concurrency. And this is something that came from Jonathan Barnett. And he was our planner, the original author of the master plan, and was participated in the first update as well. Basically, what it means is you can't let the development tail wag the dog. Meaning you've got to have commensurate services, infrastructure, and other items if you're going to have development. Otherwise, you'll always be playing catch up. The example that was used in 1995 and 1996 was all of the trailers at the Rockwood School District facilities. Too many kids, not enough classrooms, so they were in trailers. And the other example was just keeping up with the stormwater and sanitary sewer needs associated with the community. And to a certain degree, we still have a problem. It is with potable water in certain areas of town center. They have potable water from Missouri American Water Company. It's not at the pressure or volume that is really suitable for what I would consider a typical single-family home. And so we are working with Missouri American Water Company to basically address that, but concurrency.
Regarding concurrency, do we, when a developer makes a proposal to P and Z, or just, is there a discussion with the school district about the possible impact adding 150 homes is to their, or I don't recall in the fire district where that there was ever a discussion, and we absorbed without question. But are those discussions that occur?
Yes, we require the developer to contact all of the utilities and all of the service districts as part of the start of the zoning process. And oftentimes we get letters or we get emails saying, yes, we can serve this, or in the case of the fire district, we usually just got, we got information on volumes, hydrants, things like that to ensure service could basically meet the minimum levels of the fire code.
And when the reserve comes in, is that gonna help town center's water?
Actually, it is, because they're gonna further the loop.
Okay, good.
And that's a lot of the water service in Wildwood ends basically like as a dead end street. And the best approach to potable water delivery is a loop. And so we're lacking those. And as development fills in the town center, the loop gets extended.
And with Rockwood, the impression is that the schools are shrinking right now.
Yes.
Travis, one day say Dr. Kane was having coffee with the man.
There's a gentleman this morning that cited, I think, a 15% decrease over the next period of time. But that was the gentleman in the crowd.
Because, like, I know Eureka's been busting at the seams, and like the Lafayette Eureka line's at 100 right now, but me living 4 blocks south of 100, I think half of the high school kids on our street go to Lafayette, and they have no trouble bringing them in. I don't know, I see so many Lafayette signs, I'm like, really, they can't give us a bus with all these kids? But
So
thankfully,
we
my son's riding his bike to school.
And then as we move through the zoning process, the site development plan, the plats, we send them back out to everybody, because that's where you can basically ensure that you're getting the widths of streets, the things that are necessary to serve a development. And then that record plat, the easements that are necessary for installation of utilities, et cetera. So we probably at least 3 times during the process reach out to our partners and ask for information. It isn't infallible though. Sometimes that we'll miss something, or a letter doesn't come before we make a decision, things like that. But I always like to feel there's a great recourse. It's helpful.
Well, when I'm looking at this, and I was going to, yes, and then I've read ahead to where we have the internet next. And I'm just wondering if the internet can't be looped into these services. Because anymore, you have to have the internet. I mean, it is an essential service. Do you know anybody that doesn't have, it doesn't have internet as part of their daily life? I'm serious. I mean,
Yeah, well, they run.
they just maybe change some of my stuff at home to internet and I'm mad about it. So,
Infrastructure.
What?
yeah. So, I mean, could we put that in with our essential services? Or is that too broad?
For internet,
Yeah,
that's what the next one says.
I know, but can it
But-
be,
Merge it in with the first one, I think.
make
Yeah.
it part of essential services because it is essential now.
Well, it doesn't say utilities up on that one at all.
One that we're talking about?
The
Okay,
first one.
sorry. I thought we were talking about number 2 and I thought we were kind of talking, sorry, I misunderstood. I moved on.
Never mind.
Concurrency does include utilities, it includes infrastructure, roads and bridges.
That's what I, right, he started talking about the water and my mind went ahead, sorry.
Mr. Lee has.
I was just gonna mention it and just get confirmation, Mr. Vunish, that, if a new development like the reserve comes in, that there's a guarantee that high speed and potentially fiber internet be installed on that land as part of the development review process. And if there's a mechanism already in our code that provides for that during the subdivision process, the zoning process.
Excellent input.
Yeah,
All of our site-specific ordinances require fiber to the home. And in our plating process, we require that internet be provided at the minimum broadband speed set by the FCC, Tom.
Yeah, and in that case, I mean, that would have to be I think the department would have to research, but maybe that's something we could look at if you're coming in and building a new development, that you would possibly install the fiber to the premises is great. And if usually you're at fiber, you're going to be at least getting 300 megabits per second. The state only requires, the FCC only requires 125 upload. So that is, if you're doing a coax install or you're doing a copper install in today's age, that's not going to stretch out for the next 10 years or even 5 years, quite frankly, with some of the speeds, especially with the emergence of AI. I do believe that it may, if it's legally possible, if the city could require that they exceed that level, maybe at 300 megabits, because that's usually the service package that's offered at its lowest level.
so just as an aside, I had DirecTV and AT&T internet at my house because I have a visceral dislike of the Charter. So, and so when I had trouble with my internet and they came out, the guy said, "Look, lady, something's wrong with your stuff. We've never seen it this slow." And I was like, "Oh no, that's it." So AT&T finally said, "Hey, we've got something in your area." And I said, "Hooray." And then it was it's a Wi-Fi based. So essentially my internet is now like my cell phone in my house. So I think that, that's in order for me to watch TV or talk on the phone or have a home alarm. I mean, so I just think that when we get to that part of this, I think that should be absolutely a thing.
Thoughts? The next item that she mentioned was goal 3, which is obviously for a long, long period of time, until recent times, due to the efforts of council members like Ms. McCutcheon, Ms. Clark, and others, we actually have high-speed internet out to our rural areas. We did 2,100 households as part of the original phase 1. Tom, I think you said 400 or so remain.
395, but we actually just found out some relatively good news I can add to the discussion here if you want to finish your thought there, Mr. Vunish.
Go ahead.
I was just going to add in that, yes, it's 395 homes. Today, we actually did find out that a couple of those spots, one of the neighborhoods off Old State, will be getting high-speed internet from Spectrum. And it seems like that's a package that's being delivered through the subdivision itself and directly from Spectrum without any grant money or any federal funds. But we also found out, we do not have full context or details, but it seems that within this BEAD program, which is mentioned in the memorandum tonight, that I'm aware that 400 homes in Wildwood were applied for by a certain telecommunications company that is very well recognized, and it seems that they are going to be providing fiber through that BEAD program in round two, and that negotiations are currently ongoing with the state. So it does seem that we might actually be able to close that digital divide even sooner. There will be a couple households that will still be kind of if they were built after the testing was done in the challenge programs, and there are a few that are in the very rural parts of Wildwood, but it will get down that percentage that went from 85% had it, so 15% without, to approximately 3% of households in Wildwood today. That number should shrink down to less than 1% if what I'm seeing from this provider it gets approved by the state.
Thank you. Yes.
Regarding if you're considering internet as a utility, does it come under the same exclusivity of like, Ameren is the only electric provider in town? Right now, or is it Republic? Yeah, here's our trash hauler. Do we run into issues with competition in that, or should we? I know there's an issue now where you have two fiber companies digging up the same area, if you will.
They don't all share? They don't share?
They do not. So that said, there is, and that is a bigger discussion. I think this is something that maybe we could add in as a community service or potentially in another element for what we do to lobby with groups and other organizations. But I think what Vice Chair Loyal is saying here is an important one. It was a discussion we had earlier today at coffee with the mayor. We actually found out today some pretty positive news that this certain telecommunication provider that will be installing fiber in a very similar area, a lot of the houses that just got AT&T. It does seem like they're going to cut back some of those homes and actually just use one street to cut through. It's not confirmed yet, but they need to connect their network. The way the actual layout of the infrastructure works is that they have to have the main line running through to get to the households they're wanting to serve eventually. And they have to make it practical by having passes, and passes are just the number of homes and the density, number of homes with the amount of feet that you're actually running of court, because that's how the contractors get paid. That said, what Mr. Loyal, I think, is mentioning here, and wisely so, is that the state currently restricts the city's ability. It's a recognized utility company. If they are recognized by the state, they have access to the right of way, and the city's only ability is to regulate it. We have done a really good job beefing up our right of way permit process to make sure that restoration takes place in a timely manner, and it's done with pre-existing photos. We do require them to submit photographs of every household. We check the addresses on a thumb drive that's done prior to permit being issued. So we've done a lot in that regard to make sure that, quite frankly, they are not able to say, well, it was the driveway was already chipped when we got there. The problem comes in, though, is that that's truly what the city can do at this point. And Mr. Vunich had alluded to the fact earlier that just this past session, it seems that these utility companies, including telecommunications, are getting even stronger with the fact that the city now would have to pay for their relocations if we were expanding a street or expanding a street's width and actually taking into some of that space. So that's just one thing that happened. But the other is right now, there is no limitation on, a fiber company, say this one street they're going to be going down. It just got AT&T installed last year. The city can definitely plan around that and say, okay, we only can have one provider and one set of contractors going in at a time, because that's a reasonable expectation, and the law recognizes you can't have 50 contractors in there at once. That said, after that permit is closed, there technically is a right for that another provider to come in and say, I'd like to put my line directly next to it, which would lead to the same thing. So just so we can kind of visualize this, a resident that just so happens to live in a house that has the perfect spot, it's got easement in the front of the house. It just had a trench dug into it for AT&T's line. It just got filled up. They just restored it, put straw and seed down. Finally, the grass is growing back after a year. They can actually come in, apply for the permit, and the city only has 31 days to review, put caveats and regulations onto it as much as we can, and then we have to issue it. If we don't, it's considered automatically approved. So that is a state law. It comes from the FCC itself too. So the state of Missouri has just kind of made it a little bit more stringent. But this is something that does bring concern, just in the sense that some of the homes that are most profitable in the minds of the telecommunication companies it's the same groupings of houses within Wildwood that are next to, quite frankly, there are a lot that are next to Ellisville, Clarkson Valley, et cetera. And I do believe that they always call it this rule of three within the fiber community. If there's dense housing, you usually are going to have three fiber providers. That's where it makes sense to actually install it. Um, but overall, that doesn't limit it. It could be five, six until that entire easement or right of way is filled up. They could keep coming back. So I know that might not be something we can, speak on it, for this meeting, but it is something that we're taking pretty seriously. And what we have done is beefed up our right of way permit process, what is required from that contractor, but really looking at this as how can we get our legislative consultant and also the Missouri Municipal League and our state representatives to start speaking on behalf of local residents, because it is a very intrusive process. And just speaking with some of these residents that go through it, they appreciate it the first time because it's fiber internet running to their home. But the second time, they love the idea of the competition. They're definitely supportive of the market, but they just went through it. And we're going through it right now, so I think it's a little bit more raw, but just wanted to bring that up to everyone's attention. Some folks are getting way too many options with fiber, which is pretty good in one sense, but during the process, it's very, very time consuming and can cause a lot of stress for residents.
So, what about a simple revision, one word revision that says instead of services should be improved, we should say services should be finalized?
Did everyone hear that? In terms of goal 3, instead of improving internet, we basically finalize the extension of internet.
Wrap it up.
But nearing the end of our time, we have a few concluding things to do, but we will get to part.
I didn't mean to get us off track, sorry.
So we got to 3 of the goals. Don't have time to probably complete the community services.
We're gonna draw a line here and come back next meeting. Teresa, you got a comment?
Oh. Did you want me to go ahead and
Well,
break this?
just, I wanted you to know we'll get to that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I did talk with Captain Mundell. He
Okay.
gave me
Yeah.
some good
Want to
comments.
bookmark it for you so that you don't think that
No.
we're rapidly running out.
But
Okay,
the,
so
but
you
the
gonna-
finalize, I had a comment about finalize, but how does that work if we, it's always evolving, what's gonna be final, how the technology is changing all the time. Would finalize be the word you want to use? Or,
What if you don't mind, Chair?
Sure.
What if we instead of, we say finalize, but then we add in, by having a strong definition of the internet service itself by saying meeting FCC guidelines, which do change, by saying 100 megabits per second download and then 25 megabits per second upload. Or just meeting FCC guidelines for internet serviceability.
Change.
Right,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
FCC guidelines, and as they change, sounds good. Everybody like that? Okay, let's draw a line under that. Do we have any outside comments? Travis?
If anybody's on Zoom tonight with us, if you just use the raise hand feature, we can let you in to make a comment. Not seeing any hands.
Is there anything we can finalize on these 3? Community service?
Yeah, can we vote on those 3?
Are those 3?
So that we don't get to.
Or
the
we
next one?
can finish them all and put on the whole thing. We can take a vote on the 3, or we can. wait
Yeah, I
till
think
next.
that-
Let's take a vote on it and
Yeah.
then close that door.
I'd like to make a motion that the 3 items under goals, objectives, and policies, community service, all of it.
I'll second that.
Hey,
Or
all in
adopted.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Passes. Okay, you have your hand up again, Tom?
Yes, if you don't mind, Chair.
Sure.
I just wanted to kind of give everyone some food for thought, given the last action was just taken about internet. And this was something I think that we kind of started scratching at the surface. It's mentioned briefly in the memorandum, but just over the course of the time where we're about to get into the next meeting, I would just encourage everyone to start thinking, now that we're getting to a point where the vast majority of residents have access to high-speed internet. I think the idea from at least the department's perspective is going to be really focusing in on how can we leverage that internet connectivity to better inform our residents and what tools are out there, especially with the emergence of some newer tools that are coming to hand, to be able to better inform our residents and have active participation both way, whether it be through the use of forms or interactive different reporting mechanisms that we're exploring right now. Thank you.
Teresa, is what you have, are we gonna hold that till next meeting?
Whatever you and Mr. Bennett.
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with it.
Okay,
Want it now? I'm okay with either way.
we'll make it a point that we talk first. Okay, next meeting, Joe, you put some dates out there, and if I recall, our next meeting is October 28th. No.
Yes.
Everybody got that?
What's that?
Next meeting, October 28th.
I think I heard you.
And to all of you that responded to the emails, I much appreciate it. We will have forums based upon the responses for the next 2 meetings.
Did you stop blocking them?
Well, I'm still blocked, so.
Travis can.
Yeah, Travis is trying to unwind that thread for me, but, so yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
for
I'm just
the
kidding.
call.
Thank you, everybody, for their passionate discussion. Thank Mr. Holman and Mr. Beatty for your comments as well. We really appreciate it. Yes, sir.
Thank Teresa for the pineapple upside down cake.
Absolutely.
Special treat.
Please eat it.
I'm gonna use it for dessert.
Are you ready for a motion
Sure are.
to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Second. Motion to see, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Thanks.